Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My distinct honor and privilege is here. It's Cosmonarchy. It's the Tribunal stage, and it's the second quarterfinal matchup. This one, a seeded matchup from the word go. Both players having a high enough seed to face each other in this quarterfinals match, and the winner will have the distinct honor and privilege of facing off against Oya, our StarCraft 1 Protoss Pro turned Cosmonarch. Newt is going to be in the bottom left, and he is the underdog seed for this match, although only narrowly. I would say these two players are probably pretty evenly matched. And, Newt has a range of power, right? And I guess you could say the same about the Shambler, but Newt is in the bottom left. He appears to be electric blue. No, it's glacial. Glacial Terran. The Shambler in the bottom right is our Russian green Zerg. And he says, Goku, bless me as I die. All right, I don't know what that means. Maybe he's wearing the Goku advisor. The Hydrathen is on the way here for the Shambler, and he will be doing an Iziracore push, it seems like. Gonna go for the Zeki build. Something that Zeki popularized in an attempt to deal with early aggression from Terran bio. And Newt is gonna be tearing it up with some double stockade action. Both players scouting the wrong direction. I remember in some games between the Shambler and Oya, he would talk about how he is never lucky because he always scouts the wrong way on force spawn maps. But he picked Punchdrunk for our opening, so you have to imagine that there's, some risk assessment there from the Shambler. He vetoed Paradise, Newt vetoed Battle Spectre, so our jungle map's out of the woodwork immediately. Punchdrunk picked by the Shambler. Newt picks Knife's Edge, so two StarCraft 1 map ports bright and early. And our third map is Crisis Vector. We'll get back to the veto after this Maverick resolves, as it's going to stem in and probably get at least a little bit of power here. Yeah, denying a lot of mining time. It's quite a possibility here for worker damage. At the very least, it's eco damage. Is he going to get a worker kill? Oh, he was so very close. Could go for another stim. And the Shambler does end up getting a little bit mishappy there, a little bit unlucky. Forced to borrow a few of his workers as the first Iziracore pops. But I say unlucky because the fact that Newt scouts the other two locations means that he can send the Maverick to the other close spawn, right? He scouts one close spawn, doesn't find it. The Maverick goes to the other close spawn. The way that the traveling worked, it feels like maybe that Maverick wouldn't have wound up in Shambler's face had the scouting gone a little bit differently. Maybe slightly less, slightly delayed. Now, it doesn't get any kills, but it does slow down a lot of that construction. And interestingly enough, we have Shambler going for an Ovolith right out the gate. I suppose he's probably considering a straight-up drop attack, but Newt's going to be camping out at home, building his ministry at the high ground. He can't build it right here because of the mineral field blocker. A little bit of a nifty note there. I wonder if it would be possible to somehow set a flag for these minerals that makes them makes it so you can build right there. It would be a little bit gimmicky, but because they're not really intended to be resources in the same level, I wouldn't hate it. Iziracores are on the way, 4 of them for the Shambler. He comes in, sees no expansion, and he's definitely going to be curious, but I don't think he should try to attack up the ramp. Newt should definitely pull his Mavericks back here. Trying to pounce up. I think the Iziracores will get pretty close to being able to see that ministry, but not quite close enough. They only have 7 sight range, so not the greatest, right? Workers, by comparison, have the same sight range, just as a comparison point, so probably did not see that ministry. The Mason will finally come back in for a rescout, see no expansion, see Shambler just drolling. He did take a lot of economic damage, it felt like, in the early stages of the game. But a large portion of his larva was dictated towards this Ovolith drop, right? The extra Iziracores and the Ovolith itself. He's going to go ahead and pair these 3 Iziracores off into the drop and go for that committal. Newt's going to break out and get his ministry dropped. His star pad just finishes up here. He is totally out of position to deal with this drop, though. And his reaction time is very, very slow to pull those Masons away. Ends up getting away with 5 kills. Looking like a successful drop attack indeed. Have a little bit of a block here with the Watchdog to delay the expansion for Shambler. So a lot of money not currently actuated. And he cancels it at the perfect time as well. What else has Newt been doing during that downtime, though, I wonder? Looks like he's going to go ahead and resaturate his main base. He's got an okay amount of workers down here in the natural as well. And after all that, they're basically dead even on workers, with the expansion only now going down for the Zerg. I'd say economically, this is pretty even. Now, yes, Zerg can explode with worker count, but there's not really any place for those extra workers to go right now because the expansion is so late. That's a little extra factor there. So, good hold, I guess you could say. Like, Newt lost 5 workers and some mining time, but he sort of made the best of a bad situation after that by blocking the expansion. So a bit cheeky on both sides. Newt maybe pulling this Mason back from its watchdog blocking shenanigans. This is actually the original Scout Mason from way back when, so it's going to return to the fold as an Anseal pops from the star pad. We will see these Iziricors marshaling for an attack, but they can't step to this army. What they can do is they can sort of threaten some sort of flank or counterattack while the macro hatch is put up here at the natural. Shambler shouldn't allow his opponent to move across the map. I think this is actually a potentially losing position for the Zerg if the attack gets all the way here. Now, we have Bactylisks, which are definitely going to change the math on that. But if Terran is allowed to get to the doorstep here, and Shambler doesn't take a good fight in response, then it does feel like he's allowing the Zerg to, or allowing the Terran rather, to move too far forward. Whereas, obviously, with his Iziricors, he can like come in here, and you do need some kind of dedicated response to that counterattack pressure. But he's adding some static defense. He's got some more Iziricors. The Bactyl's on the high ground. He ends up losing one of his Izzies over here, but should be okay. My only concern is that the Anseals could theoretically block a lot of the Bactylist damage, but the Mavericks would have to run past Iziricors and circuits in order to really get anything done here. Plus the Hatcheros. This is very buttoned up here. It doesn't seem like this is going to be an easy fight for Newt to take. What he should try to do in this situation probably is either change up his tech or go for extra expansions. He is adding more stockades. Unless we see him pop down some add-ons soon, I would say that he's going to have to really consider what he wants to do. Now, those Rogue Cores were made to emergency help out with the defense, and as you can see, it's proving to be a little bit tricky as they end up timing out on top of the ramp. The Hatcheros will end up going down, so that's good. A good initial pick. I think it's worth for Newt to trade there, but as all of his front line is dead, he is going to need to cycle back. Obviously, if you have like Eidolons, maybe Savants, you can try to take that fight a little bit more freely, but you got to watch out for this trench here. Shambler moving over to the other side. The Rogue Cores are made short work of, not really getting much value out of their debuff. The Mavericks were not stimmed, so that is going to be an easy cleanup, and the Iziricors even coming in from the mineral only make it overwhelmingly so cost-efficient for Shambler as he pushes out, cowing the Terran for a little bit here, pushing him back. It does feel like this game has been sort of a tug and pull, a push and pull rather, a tug of war almost, back and forth. But I don't think Newt will be cracked open. I mean, he's got 4 Anseals with good energy, good HP rather. They haven't taken too much damage. You know, we got 50 HP missing from 1, that's it. More Bactyls are being made. It's pure Iziricor Bactylisk here from the Shambler. Got a couple of Hydras as well, but they're just Bactylisks to be, you know what I mean? Yeah, he's actually got not a single Hydra right now. Trying to stand tall with his Bactylisks, but they will end up getting domed by the Cyprians. The Anseal's out of position for a little bit there, but they will end up shielding as best they can. And indeed, the Bactyls are going to get run down here, it looks like. Even absorbing some of that extra fire are the Anseals. And yeah, that definitely ends up breaking the attack potential. I mean, the anchor wasn't even used in that fight, besides to soak up some bounce damage, it looks like. Third Ministry on the way. We don't have a third base coming for Shambler yet, but his swamp is almost done. And so when you finish the Apex node here and get that Tethid Swamp, you are talking about, you know, okay, now I can turn these Iziricors into Tethzoricors, right? And you know, Vithrilisks happen to be not as efficient into most compositions, but ironically, Anseals, when their shields are broken and the Viths hit them, the debuff spreads to everything on the ground as well. And so they do end up being a bit of a natural counter to the Anseal-based compositions, using the Anseals against them. It becomes a liability for the Terran. I don't think Shambler's going to go for that because it would require him to make Skithricors first. It's a very gas-intensive process at Tier 1, but it's interesting to think about anyway. As he's going to start pushing out here, Newt is lifting his anchor. Probably wants to put it adjacent to this third Ministry that's just made landfall. Right about now, I don't know. It feels like Shambler's going to be able to take some kind of economic advantage here soon. He's going to go for Tethzoricor drops, which is an interesting tactic. I guess, you know, it's a possibility. He can make it happen. Tier 2 has begun for our Terran player. I don't know if Newt even really paid too much attention to that, but he's got Mavericks and a Watchdog out here. He might be able to snipe the Ovaleth, you know, before they really make landfall. Indeed, Shambler's reconsidering based on that 6 o'clock scout. Very impactful Maverick positioning indeed. Gave his life to defend the homeland from a dastardly threat. And wouldn't you know it, with more and more Hydras and more Azira cores popping out, we are going to see just this very, very Hydra-based composition. We don't have a single, like, Lakes unit or anything. We don't have, you know, no Zorka's Shroud. We don't have a pool. Shambler's just going to go very much monocomp here, it feels like. At least as far... Obviously, it's not technically a monocomp. We got 2 different units here, but as far as the branch that he's using, it's mono branch for sure. Double expanding our Zerg player. Might get into a nice long macro game here. But it really depends on how long this Terran army is able to hold out. A lot of backdolls. You can see him kind of... He's chasing down this single Hurakan and showing his force, but with Tier 2 complete, we are going to see the captaincies writ large. The one Hurakan scouts out the 3 o'clock position, and now the Anseals are taking initial shots. Hurakan's trying to get on top of the backdolls. I'd worry a little bit more about the Tadzoricors, to be honest. Where's the focus fire? There we go. Now we're starting to get somewhere as the front line gets torn asunder. But the backdolls on the high ground, you cannot deal with those with Tier 1 bio unless you have some significant positional advantage. But the high ground kind of negates that. Anseals flying in, trying their best. The last of the Tadzoricors may end up falling here, but at the same time, it may not. There you go. It will end up being taken out. But he traded all of his bio units in Tier 1 just to clear the front line. And Shambler's 8 more Azira cores on the way. Doesn't have any other Tadzoricors, so... I say that, yeah, that includes the drop. So it looks like maybe with these 5 Ovaleths, he might consider loading him up with something, or I'm not sure what else they might be used for. He might be concerned of some kind of Eidolon switch. It feels like this is coming at the worst possible time for Newt, though. I mean, he doesn't have enough Vespene with this mineral-only base to go for something more oriented towards, you know, he's making apostles, right? But he's not actually using his mineral bank right now. Desperately hoping that he can field enough Cypria and Hurakan to make matters a little bit more tolerable here, but it does feel like Shambler is going to be able to run him over. Certainly this anchor will not last for very long. Ministry, next target perhaps. Now the Azira cores aren't morphed into their bigger brothers, so this does actually feel doable with the Cyprians and the Hurakans combining. The Anseals are shielding for so damn long, and the Ministry is soaking up a ton of damage. Even Mason's being pulled at the end of the day, but they've overstepped away from the Anseals. Those got to get cycled on. Yeah, absolutely. And the Apostle makes arrival, but it's immediately shut down. And that feels like with all the Anseals also being popped, that was the fight of consequence there. Shambler's been allowed to get his mineral only up and running. His 4th base is not actually doing anything just yet. A treasury at 9 o'clock was optimistic because, you know, Newt thought, okay, I can transfer some of my leftover workers, but he just lost all the workers at his mineral only. So maybe if he had evacuated them instead. Madcaps are on the field. We've got Mavericks and Cyprians as well. Yeah, the backdolus cords are going to be really difficult to fight, it feels like, especially with no shielding from any Anseals and no healing from any Shamans. The bounces are going to be outrageous here, and it does feel like Shambler's going to be able to break it open. The Tier 2 transition just hit at the worst possible time, it feels like, for Newt. If he had been able to, you know, knock down some of the military, I think maybe that's what he was trying to do with that army, is trade down the military a little bit. You know, bop down the Azira cores, the Tadzoricors, but the backdol counts was too high. It was still able to make this push happen. 23 Azira cores in production. The Masons are being massacred in the natural. Yeah, it feels like Newt is just about wrapped up here in a neat little bow. Would take a lot for Shambler to drop this game now. Apostles are not going to be able to get the stack up, and Newt knows, GG, that was his last chance at some kind of massively cost-efficient hold. And that will be Shambler, the favorite of the match by a slim margin, taking our opening game. So, let's find out what happens when we move on to Knife's Edge, the pick of Newt. And we are straight into our next match. Newt is the orange Terran in the bottom left, and the Shambler is our royal blue Zerg in the top left. Fresh off of his victory on his own map pick, he now seeks to take away the Knife's Edge, the Dominator port. Used to be Gladiator when it was 4 spawn, now it's Dominator as 3 spawn, and Newt is going to go Bio again as the opening. Doesn't want to change up his gambit there. It does look like Shambler has selected the wrong spawn to scout, so indeed, he is never lucky. Yeah, Newt's going to scout the right way, so, you know, it's a little bit more coin flippy, I guess you could say, but I'm looking forward to seeing how this one goes. It is a Hydrith opener here for the Shambler, so no surprises there. And into the bio, it makes a lot of sense. Into mech, it's a little bit different. I think the math is just a little bit different. Gotta wait to see what comes next. Double stockade. Okay, so it's a carbon copy of the previous game. That is for sure. One of the things that I do want to see a little bit more of from Newt is some way of, like, you know, more... I guess, like, being a little bit more on the aggressive side. His third base is a little bit late in that last game, but then he had all of the minerals that he could ever want for some kind of... You know, minerals are in many ways your scaling factor, right? And so when you think about having a lot of minerals, what it means for you is that you get access to a significant number of extra production structures without interfering with your ability to tech up, right? You can make a lot more stockade. And, you know, as Protoss, this is gateway, right? If you get those mineral-only bases up and running and looking good, well, you can do a lot. Maverick is going to come down and start stimming after these workers, forcing more uncomfortability here for the Shambler, but his Izira core timing is a little bit better. Ooh, narrowly avoids losing that extra Droleth. He's hunted down inside the main base, and that is going to be a full kill onto a worker for Newt. Is he going to get another one? Yes, he is. It doesn't look like Shambler was paying too much attention to that whatsoever, so losing 2 workers beyond the pale for this kind of rush. An anchor on the front line. Okay, Newt is going to switch in, and knowing that he's done a lot of damage and he's denied scouting for the follow-up. His third stockade has come down. That may or may not have been scouted, actually, by the Shambler's Droleth, but it was like attacking the Ministry, and then it was zoned away over here. So I'm not entirely sure when he saw that, or how much he saw when that Droleth was still in the vicinity. But scouting, if it is scouted, Shambler definitely can't be being too crazy with it, because you can end up just straight up losing this game in the early stages if you're not prepared for the amount of Mavericks. At the same time, my Zero Cores can be pretty good versus Bio, but we have the Hurricanes coming out now. The armor end, the front lining, the armor themselves that they have. Oh, and that's a great initial volley from the fire, because, you know, it essentially burned both of them and did a little bit of damage, but most notably did the... I can't believe there's a cestus being made. The armor end was a really impactful shot there. So now this has Zero Cores to flood through the middle. We've got an anchor, and we have a cestus. This is going to be really hard for a Zero Core based play to do much about. So where's the stim on those Mavericks? That's the question. He finishes off the initial 2 Izira cores. One more on the rally. That's going to be a dead Izira core if Newt controls right. Well, he's going to change his focus onto these ones off to the far side. And look at this. They're going to come up here and see the proxy cestus. The anchor's already made landfall. I mean, yeah, I don't know what you're going to be able to do about this one, man. Gathering around the anchor. The rally point will be interrupted a little bit here at the very least. We need to see a very different look from Shambler. And when you see the cestus, I think what you need to do in that situation is go for Hydras. Yeah, he's starting to filter those in. They're going to have a better time. For sure. Another anchor on the high ground as he's going to leapfrog over. Newt has so many more Mavericks on the way as well. Well, he's got to pull that one back lest it be pounced upon by the Izira cores. The rally point is going to get cleaned up. That's all of the pressure that Shambler had on the counter. He's going to try to block the landing of this anchor, and he will be successful, but has he gone a little bit too fast? I mean, remember that the cestus is still active over here. He finds a landing spot. Another one finishes even afterwards, and oh, that anchor doesn't even necessarily have to burn down. Yeah, the Mason's here. Yeah, it's going to go ahead and get repaired. I can't believe it. Not the Maupe. Not that. Shambler cannot believe his eyes, nor his fingers. Ministry being built, Newt has cut military production for the time being. He's going to expand behind this containment. The cestus is up. Now Shambler makes the desperate break. The Mason has almost fully repaired the anchor. And honestly, you might go for the cestus here so that your Izira cores can help out a little bit more. Instead, he forces down the last of that lower anchor. And he will be able to cycle away. having broken through. But look at all the Mavericks that are there. Yeah, this one's over, and I don't expect a GG from Shambler about this. Here come the stims. Here come the stimmy boys, and there is no defending this one. You lost all your Azira cores on the assault. You can't handle the Mavericks. Oh, he's typing, I guess. He's going to be typing something instead. Can't believe it. He can't believe this map is he has differences. Meanwhile, Shambler maps be like, let me pre-play some necessities for you. Well, he's still hanging around. He's making Newt finish him off, which is very unsportsmanlike, of course. But that's what you expect from Shambler, to be real. Okay, there you go. I wouldn't want to waste your guys' time. But Shambler is fine wasting Newts, and so we will see if you know, the mental can be rebuilt. You know, brick by brick, we need to see Shambler try to play a little bit tighter in the early game. Maybe recognize the map state when he ends up losing 2 workers in the early game. It's already a really, really dire situation. We'll see. We'll see if he can find some footing in map number 3. His own map pick, remember, is coming up next, and that will be Crisis Vector. Back to basic. All right, we'll see you guys there. Ladies and gentlemen, to be seen is to be believed, and Newt has Anchor Cestus rushed Shambler for a victory. Well, he's our green Terran in the top left, and he will be going for a Stockade opener once more. And the Shambler is in the bottom right, and he will be going for a Hydrith opener, I would presume. His Droleth is going to be leaving the building to scout very early on, which is a pretty big portion of his economy, so it feels like it's earlier than Shambler even usually scouts. I wonder what's up with that. I guess he just doesn't want to be anchored again, but the problem is that was a reactive play from Newt. I don't think that was necessarily his game plan, and there's not really much that you can do to tell that by a scout. I guess you can see if it's Stockade, which would mean it's possible. You could technically put mechanical units in the anchor, like vultures and stuff, but are you really going to do that same play? I mean, it's a very different style, so it does feel like Newt's happy to stick with Stockade, and Shambler's happy to stick with Hydrith, and we can just put our, you know, each player is putting the loss that they've had so far behind them and just saying, yeah, we can still make this style work. And we're going to have to see how it plays out, because it is going to be a double Stockade. The Droleth is going to be waiting for the Mason to arrive. And there's an Ahmed here to fight back. Oh, he's actually just going to ignore him and move across the map. Interesting. Well, with the Hydrith Den being done, and us having presumably 2 larvae over here to play with, we'll see what he wants to end up doing there. Because Azira Core versus Hurakan is like a fight that takes a while. He's actually going to make double Hydra. Okay, I actually like that play a little bit more anyway. It can deal with Hurakans a little bit easier. And it's a good reactive play to, you know, dethrone early aggression, sort of knock them off their kilter. This will be a situation where the Shambler Droleth taking an alternative path back home actually helps out quite a bit. Here come the Hydras, and I think when Newt sees this, you got to just almost like turn around and try to salvage what you can, because it's going to be a little bit more difficult than you would like. You know, at least you can save your second Hurakan, but you're not going to be able to do anything versus these 2 Hydras in the early game. You do not have any Mavericks, so this was like sort of a cheesy opener, but Newt was mostly just going to be somewhat aggressive. And what I like from the Shambler is that even though he took a hit economically to scout that, he did actually react very nicely to what he saw. He saw early Hurakan, second Stockade. He knows that it's going to be bio play. He's not going to get baited into making Azira cores when he knows that there are Hurakans coming. If he didn't do that scout, I mean, he'd have his units up a little bit faster because of the worse eco for the opening scout there, but it might have still changed the direction of the game a little bit. So those 2 Hydras are not going to be useless. He makes an Ovaleth and intends to drop them to go for some Mason harassment. They're pretty responsive units. 2 of them will take 3, or actually 3.5, I guess. Yeah, so it'll be 7 Hydra shots to kill a Mason. So 2 do take a while to do that, but they're also pretty fast-moving units and fast-shooting units. Maverick Hurakan is out here for the double Stockade. We got Starpad nearly complete here for Newt. He's probably going to just add Ant Seals, as is his way. Ah, triple Iziracore on top of it. So as long as Newt isn't like moving out at some anti-timing here, which of course he is, you know, Shambler is going to have a very strong attack. We might end up in a bit of a base race, actually, because he's waiting for the extra Iziracores, and now he should be going for it. There's no reason not to. This might be a bit of an inflection point, because after a certain point, Newt's going to be like, oh, I need to pull my army back to defend this. And he is doing that right now. We can see it on the minimap. I feel like this is not really a good play here, right? There is not a good play to make here. And the NCL, as long as it gets out, the Mavericks are going to come back up and start stemming down. They beat this army handily, but a lot of economic damage has been dealt. Now, Shambler is still on just the one base. Of course, you can say the same about Newt. Hurakan comes in and sees the army at the front gates. It's just 5 Iziracores. 4 more are in production. Yeah, Shambler's being pretty cost-efficient, dealing with way more Masons. Yeah, Newt is in the dumps already when it comes to his economy. It's just been trashed. Last of the units are going to be taken care of, but a lot of those Mavericks are softened up. Mason's still kind of walking over here to where the drill location was available because the guys are within vision range of the stockade, and now we've got a bunch of Iziracores leaving the building. I actually don't think the Iziracores will be able to kill Newt's army, but it almost doesn't really matter because they're going to trade somewhat efficiently. The ski back is on the way. The NCO will at least scout this out ahead of time. And, you know, Newt can prepare his micro. He did not stem his Mavericks, so he will actually lose all of these units, and we will be going to game 4 very quickly because I was kind of counting on him pushing the stem button, but GG is going to be called, and Shambler has been able to post up a dub. He is now on series point after a couple of silly games here to get us there. That means that we move on to Newt's map pick, his second map pick of Frosted Forest, with Padilla waiting in the wings should we need a game 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going on to Frosted Forest. The Shambler in the bottom left is our white Zerg, and Newt in the top right is our Ultramarine Terran. This matchup is going to be, once again, decided on the fate of Stockade into Hydrith, is what I'm discerning from the early resource harvestings. Padilla being a decider is kind of interesting. It's a map that you're unlikely to end the game super early on, whereas Frosted Forest I can kind of see going either way. And conceivably, you can have a macro build on pretty much any map, but some maps are meant to be a little bit more aggressive in the early stages of the game. So when you see stuff like that, yeah, you got to be at least somewhat concerned about what's to come. Shambler leading versus Newt. Newt did not have a good showing in the first Tribunal. He was 3-0'd by Smarty Cakes in a matchup that I thought would go the opposite direction, 3-0 for Newt. I had no faith in the Smarty. I had no faith that he would be able to do it. He comes back, and he just plays out of his mind, dude. But he's looking a bit more hot this time around. Obviously, this was his first matchup. He still could end up losing the whole thing, and in fact, Shambler wants to make it so. One of the things, though, that I guess is also true for the Shambler, right? Like, the first Tribunal was not very kind to him. We go back to that Tribunal and look at the bracket. It was him versus Cannoli that decided his exit from the tournament very early on. That was a 3-1 win for Cannoli. This time around, it's been Cannoli who's exited winless, thanks to Sausage's Protoss gameplay. But we compare this, you know, just sort of keeping you guys apprised of what all is going on when it comes to the player performances here. And it looks like Newt has either deliberately or incidentally missed his mark when it comes to moving his scout. I'm going to assume that's on purpose because I saw his camera go over there. He'll put down an anchor in the close proximity, and I think he's just going to go ahead and scout when he's pressured so that he can be somewhat assured of the fact that there's no units there to immediately shut down his scout. That's a pretty smart little thing to pocket the scout for later use. A lot of players do that. Oh, a big shout out as well to I Am the Wheat of God. I have not updated the banner yet, but he has donated $30 towards the show match makeup fund here. So we are much closer to our goal than even the ticker currently says. Try to get that wrangled for the next cast. Oh, Shambler, you left a Hydra. Left your opponent a free Hydra, basically. A couple of points of damage, notwithstanding. He's going to take an expansion in response, and the bio is actually going to swing around where there is an anchor being constructed at the extremity of that third base on the low ground. So Newt is actually not going to scout with the Mason, at least not directly. He's going to scout with his Anchor. He's got 4 Mavericks inside that one at his natural. We got 3 Iziricors are going to try to pressure it, maybe run past it if they scout that there's no military, but the anti-drop is already in play. 3rd Stockade coming. Yeah, there's not really any way that the Iziricors can do much right now, whereas if they were on the defense instead, I mean, I would actually give them a much higher chance of making things happen. It's not a great, like, really powerful army per se, but he can still... I mean, there's nothing here, so it doesn't really need to be a great powerful army. The Hurakan and 3 Maverick attack is going to come in. There's one more Hurakan there. We'll see if it's like an elevator play with the Anchor or what, but that's pretty slow. Behind this, Shambler is going for his ski-backed. Avaleth, pretty greedy here for him to not make any further military units, especially since he hasn't been able to scout to see if it's like Starpad or something like that. There we go. Coming in with the Stim and the Hurakan. Should be able to break this Droleth count down a little bit. Reactively, 3 Hydras are thrown down. And that Larvosk is very, very, very dead. Not long for this world whatsoever. Going after the Hydra from the egg. Should actually be able to pop that one. It's very, very low. The other one may not finish. Yeah, there you go. He gets it at the way out. Oh, can't even control that one. He's got one more at the natural. He was trying to turn that into a circuit. I don't know why he did that. There was no chance that that would work out. He's being dismantled by 4 bio units right now. At least the Hurakan is gone, so the armor end is no longer a problem. Could still target down that egg. It's only got 22 points of health, but he wants to stim after the Hydra. And yeah, Shambler's recalling his Iziricors. The attack in the counter is in the way. Yeah, macro hatch to try to slow this down, but... I mean, all he's got are 3 Iziricors in the, well, he's got his 3 that he came back with, right? Yeah, okay, so he's got like 6. One more being made. I don't know, man. This series is really just being decided by early action a lot of the time. This one's a little bit less silly, I guess, than Knife's Edge was with the 2 early kills with the first unit, but it's still just as over. And Shambler is about to be pushed to his limit. Padilla, Game 5 on the way as the Mavericks descend upon the decolliding Droleths that are doing their damnedest in their attempt to try to stop this attack. But does it really matter, even if they get all of the kills, which I don't think they will. Yeah, there's the Stim. There's the splash damage. And there's Shambler getting bopped. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a Game 5. Padilla will be our final battleground between these 2 players. Newt, in the bottom right, is our Tyrian purple. Oh, it's Cordovan. It's darker than that. Cordovan Terran. The Shambler, Russian green Zerg. Hey, wasn't he Russian green in Game 1? He could win, just based on the coloring. Looks like he's... Oh, he's not making workers. He's going to be going for the instant Hydrith here. And then I suppose he'll probably go for mineral harvesting? No, he's still making... Still getting gas. Is he going to go for a Hydra Rush? Is that what this is? Normally you go for like 3 Iziricors in the early game. Is he just going to make Hydras instead? I've never seen somebody attempt this. So I don't actually... Avaleth? So this is like the most ridiculous early drop play possible. This is very cheesy. This is very cheesy. I don't understand how the math works out for this build. How is he even going to have minerals to make anything once the Hydra then pops? He might make 1 Hydra. That's it. He can afford 3 Hydras in terms of gas. In terms of minerals, okay, he can make 2. The Avaleth is going to move across the map, so I guess he's going to link up with the early combat units. I don't know, man. He's just barely not going to be able to afford that 3rd Hydra on time. If he had pulled the Droleth off a little bit earlier, maybe. But even then, it probably would have been a little bit delayed, just not as much as this. This doesn't feel like a practiced build. This feels like Shambler's tilt building, you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm going to cheese you, and if I lose, then it's over. Avaleth is... Okay, it's not quite pocketed. It's not going across the map. It's just away from the base so that the drop is not immediately apparent. So Newt, when he scouts the fact that the den has done this early and that the Hydras are here this fast, he's going to be aware that he needs to be on the defensive side. I think that much is obvious. 3 Hydras won't beat, 6 Mavericks or whatever, especially when Stimpack is equipped. So, yeah, he's going to sync up with his extra Hydra. He's going to make a single Iziricor. The Iziricor doesn't change the math enough, though. I don't think this is going to work out for him. Unless Newt once again moves across the map, but he doesn't need to. He knows that the Hydra Den was rushed. He knows that the Hydras are out at the expense of workers. He didn't get deep enough to scout like the worker count, but he almost doesn't need to, you know what I mean? We'll see how his intuition is. If he moves out, then that would be the error that potentially costs him, maybe not the whole series, but certainly a bunch of workers, and gets Shambler back into the game. He's going to go with the first attack, the first unload, and he's going to pop these two Mavericks initially. But there's 7 more. I can't imagine this working out the way that Shambler wants it to. And as his attack gets entirely crushed, okay, he's going to get out with the Ovaleth. The Mavericks were not stutter stepping towards it, but is riposted at the very least. So he keeps his units alive. I'm trying to find a silver lining here for Shambler. How is he going to make this work? If he goes for the unload in a cheeky spot and then airlifts the Iziracors over, that could be a different story. He has forced a couple of stims. Oh, he's doing the Mao P again. Instead of map, it's LMAO that he's typed. This whole time I was thinking he's like biding his time. He's like figuring out his next move, but he's actually just typing. So I guess that's pretty commonplace for Shambler. Third stockade on the way. It is going to be that committed drop with the 3 Iziracors. It could actually cause some trouble. Trouble? I was going to say problems and then trouble at the same time. Trouble. P-Rubble is the file name for Protoss Rubble. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Going to interrupt the ministry being made. And that third stockade. We got enough Mavericks here that this is going to be... Oh, no! Shambler! Shambler wasn't positioned properly to accept this attack whatsoever. His Iziracors were entirely out of spot. He doesn't even... Oh, my goodness. He's still going to do some damage, but the splits are good for Newt. And, well, his Iziracors were also, like, getting... kind of pranked by the anti-rally there. There's some of these Mavericks are wounded. Yeah, he's going to get on top of them and cause it to be a little bit bloody. But you can't defend this, man. There just ain't no way. No reaction on the Iziracor there that was under attack. And yeah, I think this one is just about done. He's going to be held inside the enemy base, and that is it. Series over. Newt will move on to face Oya. And I really am just flabbered and gasted. Thoroughly flabbergasted here at the end of the Shambler versus Newt. It didn't quite end the way that I thought it would. It did not quite end the way. I guess it technically did because Shambler's typing. So I did kind of expect it there. It's all right, he says, but he can't finish his typing. Oh, he can. Zerg's still OP. Yeah, Newt won by elimination, so that's why Newt left first. I thought that maybe Shambler would be defeated out of his ability to type anymore, which would have been very, very scenic, very thematically appropriate for the series. Well, this is another best of 5 that's under an hour. We've just been rolling through these 5-game series, and let's count them. So we had 5 games between Hanmano Doglift. We had 5 games between Grass Eater Arbuz. We had 5 games between just the Shambler Newt. I don't know about any others, but if these other 2 quarterfinals prove to be anything like this one, and they probably should be, I feel like they're pretty close games. Like I would predict Dog, 3-0 or 3-1 over Arbuz. Ramen probably 3-1 over Sausage. But listen, we're talking about a situation where we could seriously have a lot of these 5-game sets, and they're going so quickly. Unbelievable. Still have time to go get some food. GG's, boys. We'll be out of here in no time, and more games soon. So stay subscribed. If you're not already, start being subscribed. And once again, the link in the description for paying up on the that show match money is very much appreciated. Shout out to Godwheat one more time. And our admin for this series was Jujic. Shout out Jujic one more time. I'll see you guys later. Peace.